Welcome to this broadcasting service. Please note the main feature is recorded live and will begin shortly. Feel free to comment on the live broadcast or take part later in our Discord community.
Because it's the silly, stupid, fascinating, weird, wonderful. They're my people, and more often than not, they're the geeky people as well.
I mentioned Betamax. For anybody older, that's the old version of a video cassette. Video cassette is an old version of a DVD. A DVD is not set on the cloud.
Hello!
Hello, geeky friends!
Welcome to another Faith and Geekery on our new evening of a Tuesday night. Becca and I are here and we are talking about Roald Dahl, or in fact,
We are.
I labelled it Oompa Loompas, Foxes and Roald Dahl. I thought anything more obscure, I think I'd lose people altogether. So I kind of hopefully... Yeah, or Eratois. No, is it? Anyway, already lost it. How are you doing, Becca? You alright?
I'm so good. Yeah, life is good at the moment.
Oh, jolly good.
Yep.
Have you been up to anything geeky
You
recently?
know what? I'm so
go on.
excited. I actually have been up to something. I have been finally in No Man's Sky, which mainly involves me going around collecting rocks and flowers, and I'm like, I have done this before in many games, and yet I built my first base station yesterday. So.
A space station?
My base station, yeah.
Oh,
my
cool.
Base station,
I remember playing that a couple of years ago, and you start off on like a radioactive planet, and you kind of having to.
You spend all your
balance
time
things
looking
out.
for yellow flowers and not
That's the
dying.
one.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
cool.
where I'm
cool.
up to. Yeah.
I just got a bit lost in it, as in I was just like, I'm in a galaxy. It's just like, I don't know what to do. I'm lonely. I'm isolated.
Oh, do you want to join my base station?
Can we actually join in?
Can we
Can you do it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I've never done that part of
Faith
it.
and Geekery, No Man's Sky. Like,
What platform?
Station.
What platform are you on?
That's on Steam on my laptop. But I think you can join it on PlayStation. That's what, because I've asked that question. I think it isn't like something like Sims, which is machine dependent. I think you can cross something or other, like my technical language.
Cross-platform.
Isn't it? Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. I think a lot more games are doing that recently, aren't they? I just used to have it on PlayStation 4, but I actually stopped my subscription for multiplayer and networking and otherwise, because cost of living crisis. Anyway, what have I been up to? I have kind of I've done a lot of preparation-y bits for geeky stuff. I've been doing a bit more of my helmets and things. I've been doing a bit more. I've been doing 3D printing bits. I've also been buying bits to file down 3D printing bits. Very boring. As well as buying kind of molds for resin and things, which is another little thing, and some dried heather. I don't know why I did that accent, but
no, I don't, because it was
quite
Scottish. Sounded like
dried heather.
Phyllis, matron Phyllis.
So an in joke between anybody in our kind of from Cliff College days, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, that was.
But yes, something like that.
I quite like the idea of doing something with resin, We could have a whole thing on what magical things could you make with resin. It's not.
The only
Not a
problem
speedy
is
one.
it's not that good for like kind of live streaming and otherwise, because mainly you've got to wear kind of breathing
Watch me
apparatus
pour.
and otherwise. Yes. It's like, oh, watch me get a little bit lightheaded because I've not put my thing on. Yeah, no. Yeah, it's a bit dangerous, but all fun. I wonder what folks have been doing since we last gathered. Anything geeky, and that ranges from, you know, kind of uber geek to just kind of like little tiny bits and pieces, really, or things that you've done in a geeky way, whether that's kind of sports or interests or watching stuff, you know, all that kind of stuff. So be in touch.
Have we ever defined that? When does something go from kind of casual interest to geeky fascination? Because there must be a line between someone who's a casual knitter to someone who manages to make it geeky with their passion or their commitment or their dedication to it.
Is it when you start to lose people in conversation? Is that a good measure? It's like,
but that makes everything I do geeky. No, Becky, you've lost me.
It's just like when people start to glaze over, or when you're fascinated by something.
Yeah, maybe.
Or when your other half sort of says, you're buying too much of that stuff.
You're taking this too far. Yes.
It's or your storage, your Kallax kind of box is no longer kind of fit for purpose.
When you start doing little research side projects on how do I store this new geek.
You know, I get that. Yeah. Tonight we are talking about Roald Dahl, and we're going to be joined by Becky in a little while. Oh, sorry, I've launched straight into Roald Dahl, and yet we've got people commenting. Currently playing D&D, investigating a murder, just having a quick break. So have fun, Mark and Becky. Yeah, sorry, Luke. Oh. Luke can't do Tuesdays, so he's doing D&D. I hope you go well, roll well, and avoid those natural ones. And David, I reached 500 hours in one game on No Man's Sky. Wow, that's pretty cool. Is that geeky? Yeah, that is pretty geeky. I mean, I'm a little bit worried that when we do Roll20 online and it kind of clocks how many hours you've done, and you're there going, oh, that's a bit scary. As soon as you start to quantify it in how many hours and hundreds of hours, then you definitely classify as a bit of a geek. But I forgot to say that we also have some kind of Geeky Gallery. I'm still trying to find a decent kind of phrase for this, really, because I had geeky news before. So that was some from Tom's last week, wasn't it? I think he'd shared these sort of bits a little bit later. Oh yeah, someone's put. I never try count the hours. Brandon says never count the hours or I'll cry. Pretty much. Yeah, so that's the. They look like minotaurs almost, kind of all goat-likey things, bully things. Look pretty cool anyway. And then we've got the heroes. I think that's what Tom had said about last week. And those are looking pretty swish as well. A lovely arrangement of colour. And then I forgot what comes next. Oh yeah, that was one of Luke's creations again, wasn't it?
Is this a finished one?
I think so. Yeah, I decided to kind of have a bit of a close-up. Because letterbox doesn't always do it justice.
Yeah.
And so that looks pretty cool. And again,
with the fading that he learnt to do,
yeah, like the cloak material looks very cool on that. That looks very good indeed. And I have just one last slide, and this is the effect of assuming that your 3D printer is fine, walking away, and suddenly coming back to like this big mountain of black gloop. And basically, I think the nozzle got stuck or something, or got full with plastic. And then he just started doing like a fountain of black plastic everywhere, which I wasn't best pleased with. Thought it was going to die. Decided to give it a go and fix it, and it has worked. So that's cool. Well so I now have some nice little minis that I've been working on. But I can't go into too much detail of those because they are for an up-and-coming campaign. So if anybody's involved with that campaign who might be watching, there may be minifigures involved, and that's as far as I'll go.
Dum.
Exactly. Shall we move on to the main event?
To the main event.
Unless there's any other geeky news, but I'm sure we'll go on tangents anyway. I know I definitely do. So I believe we have. So should we start off by talking about our introduction to Roald Dahl? If we've given that any thought, Becca, or is it?
Oh, as in
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I was so young. I think I think we need to say that Roald Dahl is an author, and the books that Roald Dahl predominantly wrote was for children. So we're talking about children's books, almost more so than Harry Potter in some ways. He was intentional in writing for children, for their imagination, and there's a lot around his thinking behind that was to give children the gift of really loving to read, of books that gripped them where they were at, rather than trying to go over their head, so that for the rest of their life they would be an avid reader. And I think that's where I come into it, is that actually Roald Dahl was easy for me to read. I would read them multiple different times each book. I think there's only one or two that I haven't fully read. So we are talking about a children's author, but also what that gave us as adults, essentially.
Yeah, I remember the what's the crocodile? Is it Naughty Rhymes or something? Or Silly Rhymes? Revolting Rhymes. Is that right? I remember like one of those kind of basic picture books when I was a little kid, and then we kind of. Bizarrely, at school, actually, we didn't spend a lot of time reading any of the kids-based ones. We kind of read Boy and Going Solo, which was all about Roald Dahl. And I think that's where I kind of found a fascination with him, and grown up kind of reading about kind of his view of kind of seeing war and things like that, and kind of the gruesomeness. But yeah, I haven't picked that up since. But I just, that always stuck with me, of kind of reading a biography, not an autobiography, whichever way around. Kind of written by him, and just kind of his view on the world, and so that kind of got me interested actually in realizing it wasn't just a book, it was a guy writing about stuff, and kind of his interest and excitement into writing about stuff, and it being a bit gruesome, and I think that was the standout thing for me, is that Roald Dahl wasn't just like and then there was a princess and then they lived happily ever after, it was just
there's nothing twee about it, is there? It's all fairly gross, fairly brutal. What happens to the twits as their comeuppance. In fact, what happens to the children in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Roald Dahl had a very strong sense of kind of right and wrong, but also that there is consequences for the way you behave, and he really kind of I've not quite got to spoilers yet, but he made a real kind of a point of, if you behave in this way, then something bad will happen, and there is almost that, and if you're good, then good things will happen, and whether that's and I think it's worth talking about whether that's helpful or not, such a black and white understanding of the world, but he certainly did put his villains that he portrayed through some really tough circumstances.
I was going to say, I remember it was just last year or year before, introducing my son to George's Marvelous Medicine. I think they had it for as a school. That was the kind of their kind of introduction to Roald Dahl, and I was like, oh yeah, it's fantastic, mate. It's fine. Got nothing to worry about, because he's always a little bit kind of aware of stuff going on, and they're going, oh, she dies at the end. she disappears into nothingness. And I was like, just looking across at him thinking, is he okay with this? And he's like, yay, brilliant, way. Yeah, sorry. Actual spoiler. But do you know what I mean? But it was fine, because it was done in a humorous way. And I think what I like about kind of Roald Dahl is that it kind of explores, and it jumps in, and it invites kind of the reader to jump into this curious and quirky, weird world, where it doesn't hide behind, doesn't hide away from nastiness, but kind of deals with it head on, but with kind of, I want to say, like the humour of a young child who kind of, do you know what I mean? It's the messy, the muddy, the, nobody. I was about to say nobody in their right
Squelchy.
mind. Yeah, but
Yeah.
like George's George's Marvelous Medicine, for example. Nobody in their kind of, I don't want to say in the right mind, but kind of nobody nowadays would suddenly go, you know what we want to do? We want to really encourage kids going through and finding the most poisonous substance in the house and just throwing it and mixing it all together.
And then giving it to their grandma, and it's going to be fine.
Yes. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like, wow, you know, if there was a publishing office now, they'd be like, no, can't go there, don't go there.
Yeah.
And I guess that is something that we need to touch upon, isn't it? That actually Roald Dahl has been in the news. Was it last month or month before? About kind of
About 4 months ago, I think.
Oh, was it 4 months ago? About kind of a gentle edit of kind of words and phrases or otherwise. And I mean, I guess I can see why some people might be upset by it. But I think for me, I kind of go, well, actually, a lot of stuff becomes dated, doesn't it? And we do kind of do a bit of modernisation to an extent on most things. Is that fair to say? You've just shared
Yeah,
the,
I mean,
the
yeah.
link.
So I grew up with Enid Blyton books in my bedroom. I don't know if I said this when we were talking Harry Potter, and had a whole row of the Enid Blyton books in my bedroom that I was not allowed to read because because the language in them was racist.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I have since been rebelling to make up for this fact, but I didn't open them. These books were banned, and I had banned books, but they were in my bedroom. And that idea that language absolutely moves on, and language does shape the world that we live in. And it's then, is it right to have that pause and that moment of, these books are really important to kind of the literature understanding that we've got, that us now as parents are passing on to our children, but do we need to tweak that? And I think we do. I think we need to be aware of that. There are lots of things that Roald Dahl does, and similar with J.K. Rowling, about body shaming and kind of the way he talks about physical attributes of a person. He kind of makes some attributes good and some attributes bad, and he does kind of address that with, if you're good on the inside, then that will eventually shine on the outside. But there is that kind of, and then if you think mean things, then you'll get uglier and uglier. And you're like, oh, well, hang on a second, because we're already in a very visual world that is incredibly judgmental. We've got children with eating disorders and all sorts of things at the age of 4 and 5.
Yeah.
How do we negotiate that well and kindly, where we're physical? You know, we see things, we notice things. It's part of our understanding of the world. But where you vilify a subjective assessment of ugly as being an indicator that someone is bad on the inside.
I'm going to go slightly off topic here, but I think it's very much like the kind of James Bond kind of books and things, and and the whole kind of James Bond films. You tend to have the villain has always a physical, ailment or issue, and it's they're going, why can't they just be why does the villain have to have a physical disability or something, some kind of characteristic that points them out to be different? And I think actually, as culture I think we tend to filter stuff as we go along, really. And I think things like kind of Shakespeare and things like that, because it happened such a long time ago, we kind of either some of the meaning's lost, or we avoid some plays or some books, and we've naturally filtered them. When it's just kind of within our lifetime, well, kind of society's lifetime, I think it's much harder to look back on something objectively, because we've kind of gone, oh well, we grew up with it, what's the real harm? And they kind of go, well, actually, for people kind of coming to it fresh, we've actually moved on from that point, and therefore we've got to just respect that. And
and in terms of representation, in terms of kind of the perpetrating impact of white supremacy within our storytelling. You look at just Disney's use of the human nose to indicate whether someone's good or bad. And you're like, we just need to, I think having a sensitivity towards it is helpful, but then doing something proactive, like let's honor these stories but rewrite them or sensitively, and I think they have done it sensitively. I think that starts to redress the power.
And I think I think we can we park that there to sort of say that I think we naturally filter it, and I think his response, just as we move on, and I think it's really good that even if we're editing a couple of bits and pieces, at least it is still proving to be popular and part of kind of our culture, and that we are naturally kind of picking the best bits, as we do in all avenues really. I've just put up on the screen what's your favourite Roald Dahl book, and I wondered if you've got an answer to that, Becca, or if we're just going to throw it out to the people watching or taking part.
Throw it out to the people watching. Do I have one? So many. I mean, until the most recent film release, it was probably the BFG. There's something about his character, his recognition of what he struggles with language, but the fact that he almost has an accept me as I am, because I'm going to keep bumbling through, but I'm kind. And and when they made the movie of him, I was just in love all the time. All the way through the movie, I was just making little whimpering sounds of joy that here was my childhood hero who I had absolutely adored, and he was fully real. For me, that was my BFG on the screen in 3D. They did it beautifully. I love his language and the way he stumbles over things. But to be honest, the Matilda musical remake in movie has almost trumped that, and it's in a different way. It's got a different energy.
Well, I was gonna avoid the kind of motion picture stuff. Motion picture? When have I ever used that? Films and movies just at the moment. No idea where that came from. But kind of books for me. I think Fantastic Mr. Fox was very good. And I think it's because I am kind of from farming background, if I haven't ever told you, and that Bogus Burns and Bean, and it just, I think for me it just turns the whole thing on its head, and rather than kind of hearing about the farmers and the farmers dealing with stuff and all that kind of stuff, it throws it around that actually the fox is the victim, and the fox has got a lovely little family, and it just pokes fun at the farmers. And now as I think about it, at least two of my members of my family, I won't even mention who, they definitely have a Bunsen Bean like quality about them,
Interesting.
in physical appearance as well as in attitude. Let's move on from that very quickly.
But it is, I mean, what Fantastic Mr. Fox does in a way that Watership Down couldn't do for me, because I found that book so terrifying, and the TV remake so terrifying, whereas Fantastic Mr. Fox invited me into the space of peace with them. I wanted them to get the chicken. I read that book feeling hungry for chicken every single time, and it was that kind of that narrative of, but this doesn't feel fair, and what do we do when something doesn't feel fair? Is there activity that we can get on board with? And that sense of injustice really became a drive for me, that Fantastic Mr. Fox does actually.
I laughed, by the way, because Watership Down, I'm not allowed to do my impressions of Watership Down in the house, because Becky doesn't like Watership Down in any way, shape or form, because it's too traumatising.
So traumatising.
Whereas I often loved to quote the harassed little rabbits. Anyway, let's. I'll skip away from Watership Down with respect. Fantastic Mr. Fox. It was just quirkiness and just and yeah, I just loved the book about it. I've got to say, actually, at school again, later on, they introduced us to Danny, Champion of the World, and I liked that kind of underdog story when I was a little bit older. And at first, I was just like, "Oh my gosh, what pheasants, really?" But just
Pheasants
kind of,
love raisins.
yeah. Oh, and then just the comeuppance, and again, isn't it? It's that kind of the way
It's the
that Roald
justice
Dahl,
again.
yeah, deals the justice, and
Yeah.
you rally in that corner, and it's that hurrah kind of moment,
Yeah.
and you thumping you thumping the air, going, yeah, come on, that's good.
And he does do that. He does that with Charlie in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. That kind of being poor, being weak, isn't in and of itself a completely powerless thing. He kind of restores a sense of balance with Charlie. Same with the magic finger. I really loved that. The magic finger. She has this power in her finger, just this young girl, and she changes the world around her in order to kind of get her own back and make things fair. And I loved that ability that she had. And I think that's what Roald Dahl does with imagination. What if it was different? What if you were taken away from two evil aunts in the tastiest of ripe fruits, and your best friends become the insects, and there's a better life for you.
I assume you're talking about James and the Giant Peach there, and not anything of your own. Okay,
No,
just sort of check.
I mean, would I love to live in a giant peach? No, I would not. Can I tolerate the idea of being sticky for days on end? No, I cannot. And if I have to get over how gross I would find touching a peach in that. Oh, yeah, but to imagine that the world can be better, it can be different. All we need to do is be kind to each other, which he models over and over again. Kindness for the win.
I think I do like the escapism of it, and just to be able to kind of imagine. I do find though that I think you've got to be sometimes a bit aware, because there's a certain person in our family who really got into Matilda in a big way, and then for the next couple of weeks tried to move water with their mind, and got very excited at one point. Went, it moved! I was like, did it?
We've all done it, Mark.
Pardon?
Haven't you ever sat there frustrated, not having felt that your voice was heard, and just sat and stared up at a glass of water just in case this is your time? No, just me.
No. I'd be more concerned if it moved without. Anyway. Oh dear. But no, I think what I find interesting about Roald Dahl is, and I said this just off air before we started, is that for me there's almost like a modern parable sort of idea. It's like these moral kind of tales and kind of moral kind of lessons, isn't there, involved in them, and that. Taking kind of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, for example, it's very very obvious their characteristics that are kind of dare I say punishable. That they'll come. It's again the judgment, isn't it, that there's a consequence to their kind of behaviour. There's consequence to how they are, and again, like Fantastic Mr. Fox, it's not as if they were just delightful people. Actually, it's trying to teach a lesson. And
some of that lesson is tied up in his age and his. I read something. It might be a poem that's in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory about the nursery floor. And the nursery floor is a different room to their bedroom. And you're like, what kind of privileged background are you talking about, where your children have dedicated rooms for, their separate time away from the adults, and then their sleeping time. And there is a very white middle class judgment of what is right and wrong, what is the right and wrong way of living your life. he's very judgmental of a lot of parents using television to babysit their children, and yeah. So and I like that critique. I think we need that critique of our sometimes laziness or inclination to cut corners. I think we need voices within that, especially voices that are saying, let me imagine something different with you and come into my world and imagine with me of what it looks like when we're not.
Me.
Oh, that was beautiful. You should carry on, Mark.
A word of imagination.
Exactly.
No, it might get done for copyright.
Oh, only if you're right on tune.
For that reason, I'll sing out a tune for you.
Well done. Oh, that's so clever, Mark.
Come with me. A word of imagination. Or not. So yes. But I think I like about Charlie Bucket though is that they don't have anything, and yet that he's kind of he's treated all right, and there is love, and I kind of like that kind of element of
love.
Yeah, and suddenly the
Four
grandpa
adult
manages.
people all in bed together, just so much love, and it's hard not to see the movies overlaid with what I had in my head when I read the books.
I was about to say it gets very murky for me from this point on of thinking, what is in the film, what films,
what is in the film,
and
which film am I thinking of when I think of?
But I think
there's so much love. Yeah,
I think it would be good to move on to the films and kind of other ways of which it's portrayed at some point. But I mean, got to mention Quentin Blake and his illustrations are just fantastic, epic. That is just so style. I mean, they are just a style in themselves, and I think kind of illustrates for David Walliams now. I think. I think. Or it's a very particular style anyway, whether someone's copying that or otherwise. Quentin Blake's drawings and even before we got into the books, my daughter had kind of a big poster of it's like a Matilda and it's all lots of elements from the kind of Roald Dahl's world. I wonder if there'll be an expanded universe of the Roald Dahl kind of stuff where they can kind of overlap with one another, rivaling the Marvel universe. That would be quite cool.
Like all the evil villains of the Roald Dahl.
But doesn't he do that with Revolting Rhymes? In fact, actually, is it Revolting Rhymes where he does that? Where like the Three Pigs and Jack. Because Little Red Riding Hood comes and kind of whips a pistol from her knickers and kind of shoots the wolf. And you go, oh, hurrah! And she walks away with a new kind of, wolf coat? But then she also has like a three-piece pig briefcase set or something like that, a suitcase set, and you're there going, oh, she went there, not only did she kill the baddie, but she killed the pigs as well, so I kind of, and I love the fact that it kind of, they all related, so you had the individual kind of original fairy tales, but actually it was Roald Dahl's little twist, and you're able to kind of, kind of see his humour brought through, and they're interconnected. It's really good.
That's what a prophet does. If you switch that quickly into kind of the religious world, a prophet is someone that essentially flips the switch and says, look at this differently. This is how you're living now. Let's imagine something different. Or and I think something like Black Mirror does this really well. Let me shine a lens of just projecting this trajectory into something much bigger and grimier and gruesomer, so that you can really see the direction that you're going. And I think that's what Roald Dahl does in terms of that prophetic justice speaking voice of, this is the world that you live in, carry on this way. And I think he does it for each of the children in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. This is the life that you live. The Oompa Loompas sing their humorous songs, but boy, do they cut fine close to the bone. It's just, did you just do the wrong Oompa Loompa dance? or was that the?
That was the original one.
Was that the original one?
Loompa, diddly do. We
Okay.
got another
I get
message
very
for
angry
you.
about the newer one.
What do you get when your kid is a brat? But yeah, I mean, sorry, are we starting to move into that or not? No, we will keep back a little bit longer. It's it's like lifting a mirror up to society, isn't it? And I think the problem is when, as we've mentioned, I think when time has kind of moved on a bit, then you can kind of see a bit of the difference of where society was to where it is now, the middle class nature of kind of it. But actually, it still brings this lesson of holding a mirror up and saying, actually, this is what our world's like a bit. Whether it's kind of our kids are infatuated with this or the other, or they're having their own way. Great dancing, thank you, David. That they're. That they have. It's throwing me now. They have a way of kind of. It's kind of confronting the awkwardness or the lesson to do,
and he does it with the silly and irreverent and ridiculous, so that it softens it. But it's really quite brutal, some of the stuff that he's kind of reflecting on. In terms of overindulgence, overeating, overuse of technology. And you think when he's writing this, he really lays.
You thought it was bad back then.
I know. But there is all of that of what happens to children when they only ever watch a screen. Yeah.
But I also find it very interesting to kind of compare it to kind of like Tiger Who Came to Tea, for example, where again that is a crazy, it's like a weird imagination thing, but for me I kind of go, but what is the story behind this though? Who does the tiger represent here? And that's where I feel a bit more awkward. I'm kind of going, but surely we should look after the stranger. Surely we should be gracious for people. And they kind of let it come in, but you left it with that kind of, this tiger's come in and got and eaten them out of house and home, like kind of he's gone through, and but then dad comes back, takes him to a coffee, so we take him to a cafe and all's well. I'm not kind of going,
not just to a cafe, but cafe wearing her pajamas. That was the best bit for me.
Well, you see, I've got to be honest here that I actually read it in reverse to my kids eventually. So we read it in one way around, and then I said basically, what's the girl called? Sophie. Basically, I used to say Sophie loves tigers. She loves kind of curling up with tigers, and the tigers would love her back. But she never had a tiger at home. So her dad decided to go out and go out of his way, and he made a wish, and he came back as a tiger. And you do the whole story in reverse, and she loves the tiger so much that the dad goes away and tells everybody, including the milkman, the paper boy, and all that kind of stuff. And Sophie it just loves tigers and kind of goes in that kind of reverse way around. And my kids preferred that way to the original story. So they'd be like, the other version. But anyway, it's not about the tiger
this
comes
is not
to tea.
Roald Dahl. What are we doing?
No, I know. But do you know what I mean? I think the comparison there for me was like what does that kind of story tell us and teach us? And I felt much more awkward with that because I felt as if it was a bit more selfish and not being open to the stranger. Whereas I think for me,
see, I always read it as they were generous. They were generous and polite, and they allowed the tiger ate all of those cupcakes.
Yes. In fact, does he have the buns? Is that one of the few times? Anyway, yes, sorry.
He does eat the buns.
Yeah, it's one of the few times when they call them buns, because I've always grown up calling them buns, and very few people talk about cupcakes. Anyway, but maybe some stories are just stories about tigers that come to tea, and I'm maybe overreading it. So coming back to Roald Dahl, David has just shared that the twits make him feel queasy. Okay, we talked about favourite books. Which is the baddie that has made us feel the most on edge from the catalogue of Roald Dahl? I'm going to write
The
that
twits
out.
is definitely up there for me. The twits are, I mean, for a start, they are so cruel to each other, but their end is so unpleasant as well. Yeah, the twits, but also how he describes them. You kind of, my shoulders are even now kind of curling up in. They're just kind of revolting people. Not in the Matilda sort of way. But also the witches. The witches kept me just on the right side of terrified. And I was a sensitive little girl with an overactive imagination, but somehow I could read that compulsively, and be terrified, but still be safe within the world of that Roald Dahl allowed me into.
I've got to say,
that
and I'm starting to kind of go across into the TV and the film stuff. For me, it wasn't actually the witches. The scariest bit for me was the child in the picture, and feeling completely freaked out that somebody could throw me into a painting and I could be left there alone to die and kind of grow old and one day no longer be in the painting. And I remember that scene so very much, and it was just like,
in the book? Is that?
I don't know. I've not read it.
I don't know either, and it was horrible. I mean, all the things that happened to the children, they're horrible, and yet somehow in a Roald Dahl world, because he's inviting you into this
world of imagination.
Yes. Witches.
Yeah. But yeah, I remember that original version. I actually remember going on retreat and going, you know what, I watched the modern one. And it was like, yeah, this is a bit rubbish and a bit weird. And again, I found it really interesting that they still went with the physical attributes. And again, it's that kind of modernisation, because I think they got into trouble, didn't they, with kind of facial kind of physical... I think about the mouths or something about the mouths that they got into trouble about. But interestingly, in the original film, they had kind of stumpy toes, and they still kind of went into the physical thing, and that didn't feel as bad as the remake. And again,
because they don't have toes, do they?
It's just like stumpy square.
They don't have toes, and they have frilly nostrils and no hair, and really interesting.
So, do we move into the films and the and other ways? Do we talk about those sort of things? What are people into? What's the standout Roald Dahl film or musical or musical?
What others have been turned into musicals other than Matilda?
I think it's just that, isn't it?
Is it just Matilda?
I think it's just that. Yeah. I've got to say, I really liked Fantastic Mr. Fox, and I don't know if that's because it was the Wes Anderson kind of style as well. I thought that was quite cool. Do you know what I mean? It's very stylish, and the stop motion.
It is very stylised.
George Clooney, and our kids absolutely love it to pieces.
Yeah. I didn't enjoy it as much as I wanted to. I don't. I think partly some of it is to do with how zoomed out some of the landscape is quite big, and so the fox feels quite small, and I don't feel as close to him as I want to. I don't know. It's very strange.
I kind of loved it because I love the fact he's a cheeky chappy, and and
the
relationship
they do
with
him very well.
I love the fact that the relationship with his father and son, and they just never seem to get each other. And then the cousin comes, is it Scandinavian cousin who's like just perfect at everything, and there's that kind of that relationship there, or that kind of
the tensions of it.
tensions of it. Yeah, I do like it. I do love it for that. And then eventually, and then they get together. Do you know what I mean? They kind of realise each other and who they are, and yeah, I quite like it. I like it for that. But then, yeah, do we talk about Matilda?
Let's do Matilda.
I
love the Danny DeVito. I can't remember what the actress's name who did Matilda. I love them. I think they had great chemistry. She is absolutely adorable. Same as she is in Miss Doubtfire. She kind of steals the show, which is what Matilda needs to do.
Yeah. And I like the fact that they changed. They could have, regurgitated the first film. I was okay with the first film, but it didn't ever really. It didn't really leap out at me. I could have taken it, left it. I love the idea of the girl with the magic power sort of thing. Oh, hello.
That's me kicking something.
Oh no, it's okay. And then I think for me, I was really glad that they didn't just kind of regurgitate the original the original film, but actually recreated and kind of played around with the ending and rewriting their story. I really love that kind of premise, and really running with that kind of. Becky and I were having this conversation about sometimes we've got to be a little bit naughty. And that was that in the original. Yes, it was, but it wasn't emphasised in such a way that.
Because she is naughty.
She is.
She does get her own back. She does do some fairly cruel things to her parents and her family, and takes back power and control. But I don't know.
Sorry, just communicating with my wife.
This is what it's like, people.
Well, it's just in case if it's too late for her to join in, because the kids have taken a long while to go off to bed, and she's also worried anyway about missing too much of the conversation so far.
She's welcome to join us for Matilda. Come on.
That's what I've just said. That's what I've just said. I kind of I just thought Tim Minchin's music writing is just fantastic.
It's irreverent. It's silly. It's a perfect fit for Roald Dahl.
It contains pretty much all of the songs that you can actually play of his that you can play to children, whereas his other kind of songs you pretty much can't. So
that's true.
Any of the other ones that he's done on tour and on stage, but I think the masterstroke with those songs is absolutely phenomenal, and my daughter absolutely loves them, still sings them, and we've watched that film, the musical, several times, at least double figures. And even kind of interestingly, my son was there kind of going, oh, I don't like this, don't like this, don't like this. And he just found himself to be watching it. And then kind of the next time he was just like, yeah, we can watch it. Yeah, I don't mind. And then just like this last time, he was there kind of going, how do they actually dance on top of the roof like that? Surely that's a bit dangerous. And I was there going, no, you're completely hook, line and sinker. So we had to watch the behind the scenes. It's really kind of fascinating, even from kind of a technical perspective. I don't think Becky is going to join us tonight, by the way. So, sorry about that.
We love you, Mrs. Bennett.
What else is there? I'm just trying to think of other films. Another the Eratois. Is it Eratot?
How do you Eratot?
Eratot.
That's a lovely one. Is that Judi Dench? And,
yes. And
what's his name?
I can see his face. Rain Man.
Justin Hoffman.
That's the one. Thank you.
Yeah. Beautiful little romance.
It was a Christmas special about 6 years ago or something, wasn't it? Or 5 years ago.
Really nicely done.
Yeah.
And she's a miraculous actress anyway. As is he.
Yeah. BFG, as we mentioned, cartoon version and the kind of
love the cartoon version.
Mark Rollins, is it? Mark
I'll say Rollins. That Methodist minister.
No, different Mark. I'm going to bring it up now. Thanks. 1 second. PFG. Rylance, that's it. Mark Rylance. Yeah, he did that really well. I thought he became, he embodied the BFG very well to say it was an animation, you know.
Yeah. And there was a huge amount of vulnerability. The facial expressions of what they're able to do now that I was completely in. I completely believed that was a real person. I mean, it doesn't take much. You show me a spoon with googly eyes, and I'm probably right there. To be honest,
should I brought that back on again? Should I?
What, the spoon? It was. Yeah, there we go. Right behind you. See, I'm fully in on those characters.
Can we move it? Oh, I can't see them. Nope, can't see them now.
Oh,
never mind.
They're right there, just in between, little peeking through, watching us with their googly eyes.
That was just a PowerPoint slide I pinched from Microsoft.
Nice.
Anyway.
Yeah, but what that does, and there is, when they get that right, in a way, I'm not convinced the Harry Potter movie has ever got right, but what some of them have got right for Roald Dahl, to bring those characters with the reverence that beloved characters are due. There's something a bit magical.
And I think it just, I'm a very visual person, and therefore to be able to read something is good, and it kind of enables, I can kind of imagine and create something in my own mind, but to then kind of recreate something of a good standard as a film, that even if it isn't quite what I imagine, I think it does, it enables you to think of it in a different way, and to sort of see a physical kind of connection or kind of landscape of it, to sort of go, oh, actually it's never struck me in this way before, it's like that, or and I think that's really exciting what you can do with kind of the films, of how they kind of transfer across, and again, it's just that embodying of this crazy imagination, this lovely imagination, which is kind of you just don't know what to expect. And I think we should also obviously talk about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, because I think that works very well as well.
With Gene, what's his name, and Johnny Depp both as Willy Wonka.
Gene Wilder, isn't it?
Gene Wilder, and
I was about to say Gene Hackman, which is a different guy altogether.
Completely
French
different
connection.
guy, but what they bring in terms of kind of weird, wacky outlier with an imagination, who's slightly reclusive, but hoping for a different world. You do wonder whether there was a little bit of kind of autobiographical projecting onto that strange character that is Willy Wonka, creating a different world.
I'm fairly sure, I don't know if it's from like an Instagram story or TikTok or something random like that, but in the agreement with Gene Wilder being Willy Wonka, the scene with the cane, he said that's part of my agreement. I need to have that in there, and they did it in one take, and so the kids at the gate didn't know he was going to do that.
Nice.
Likewise, when potential spoiler, when he turns around and shouts at Grandpa and Charlie at the end. And they die. No, not really. At that point where he shouts, that is their general reaction again. That's their genuine reaction again. Because again, it's just part of that kind of flipping that character, and the psychedelic bit as well. I heard something about it. Yeah. But I don't exactly know as much about that one. But But again, it's their kind of creative way of which they put their kind of imprint onto such an iconic book. But I've got to say, I do. Other than, I do love the Oompa Loompas in the original, the songs especially.
The Oompa Loompas original songs in the first one were good.
Yeah, and I do like kind of the is it the geese laying the chocolate eggs in the first one rather than the squirrels, isn't it?
And aren't they both in the books, the geese and the squirrels? I can't remember now.
I remember jumping like the girl who kind of goes, I want to know, I want a new one. That iconic
Veruca
song.
Salt.
Yeah. Is it Veruca Salt or is it the other one?
The Spoiled Brat.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, it is, isn't it? Because I'm thinking of Violet's Turning Violet. I always get those two mixed up. No, I think
the chewing gum girl.
Yeah. But I do quite like the landscape and the colour and the imagination of the remake of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
I love the remake, except I'm so kind of connected to the Oompa Loompas that when they just don't bother and just have one person,
I think I definitely get you that there's definitely a cost of going. Do you know what I mean? There's the quality of it is lost, that they've just kind of opted for green screen one person rather than kind of a medley of people and doing it real, in front sort of thing. That is a bit of a shame.
It was.
And
it was disappointing.
That I think the Oompa Loompas in the second one is the most disappointing bit in the whole film. But I just love Johnny Depp's portrayal, that quirky,
he is
weird,
really good.
And
he's very Johnny Deppy.
Yeah, but I think he's
unique
Johnny Deppy
for the character. Yeah. Character's unique, but it's still Johnny Depp, which is awesome.
Yeah, you're kind of left kind of going, is he a baddie? Is he really wrong, or is he actually just so innocently broken? And having Christopher Lee as his dad and the flashback scenes, and so I'm now just making connections with Wandering to Roldham and the 5 golden tickets. Is that what they've got melted down into? No. I just thought that attention to kind of exploring the character, but again, not having to over explain everything, but just kind of just play around and give you something different rather than the same old, which I think can be a bit of an easy one to fall into, isn't it? Just but I've really enjoyed Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory or something. They've got different names, haven't they?
Yeah, they do.
I thought both of them are good for. Yeah, they're good.
They're good. And it kind of lends that excitement of the sweet shop that that you don't get if you're always having sweets, but that strange hope that I still have when I open a bar of chocolate, the reverence that Charlie has of this is not to be taken lightly. This is a treat. This is which is something that you almost have to learn how to do. That instead of childlike impatience, he's like, this is, I'll never get this chance again to even open a bar of chocolate, let alone the hope of it maybe having a golden ticket. That he does something that just keeps in the back of my head, that you treat things with reverence and respect. You kind of handle this with as if it's worth remembering each moment of it, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I find it interesting as well. I don't know if it's just because of the foil, but is it Tony's Chocolonely? Kind of opening a bar of that for me is very, very special. I don't know if it's just because the foil and it does have a Willy Wonka like quality to it.
It does,
and so. The
name does. It's a very playful with words and sounds, and Roald Dahl would use 5 words instead of the one, because he loved that language, and I think Tony Chocolonely does that. It's just playful.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. Have we come to pretty much an end?
I think we've come to an end, I think.
A natural end, unless anyone has got anything else to say or otherwise. Next week, I'm not around. I'm going to kind of disappear. I've got a meeting which was unfortunately in my diary before anything else. So, Becca, you're going to...
I may be here on my own, but as I am not an avid board game player, I will need some people to come and convince me why board games are the way forward, and if they don't, then we'll have to wait a week. I'm not going to sit here talking to you about how I get a little bit bored during board games. because I don't think that would make great viewing.
So we need folks to interact and get involved.
Come
We?
and
So you
come and
can.
volunteer. Come and have a chat with Becca about why you.
We should say, and we should encourage the kind of being part of our community, being kind of on. Oh, how do I get rid of that other banner? Thank you. Join our WhatsApp and well, maybe just the Discord. I've got rid of the kind of WhatsApp one because no one joined it in any way, shape, or form. Brandon is talking about.
Well, same with Monopoly.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, there's a lot of board games to kind of explore, though. So I think we covered some.
I think maybe I've just not found my board game. Maybe that's what it is.
Well, I've got a Zoom call next week, so I may be able to maybe drop in afterwards. But I'll leave it in your capable hands, Becca.
Thank you.
Folks, be nice to me. And then maybe the week after, we're going to do maybe something a bit more creative and crafty, I think.
Creative, crafty. So, yeah. Share your stuff leading up to it. We'll have a proper show and tell. Do we need a bit of a challenge, Mark? I could do with a challenge. A crafty challenge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, make something to bring and share for the thing. So if someone wants to give us a theme, that would be great.
Or is it just to encourage them to get on and do something and create something and get off? You know, when you have little projects to one side, you're like going to get around to doing it. Come on.
Yeah, what is that thing that you've been putting off?
Yeah, come on. Now is your opportunity. You've got a couple of weeks to get it all finished.
See, I've got a lino cut in my head that mainly focuses on darkness and plays with light rather than the other way. You know, you spend a lot of time removing stuff with lino cutting to create the light.
Yeah.
I want to see how little I can remove to create the darkness, but with the light coming in. But
very good.
I've not worked out in my head yet. So
because we're both into lino cutting, and I believe David is also into lino cutting as well. He's done some really cool things. I wonder if we can persuade him
to come on.
Yeah, that would be good. So show off all our. But join the Discord community and upload photos to that, and then that's a guaranteed way. Well, hopefully a better way of getting them on. You could post them to me. Can't guarantee that.
And if you're passionate about board games, then let us know. Yeah. Get on Discord, get on Facebook. We would love to hear from you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, we are going to finish now, but again, just be involved, comment, like, subscribe, as well as be part of the Discord community, and that's where our conversations continue. And you're more than welcome. And now's your moment. I will say, I have got a kind of Twitter account for this. Thanks. But we didn't talk about Twitter going down this week or being limited to the low tiers of people. 600 tweets. So I'm going to wait to see what threads look like from Meta and see whether we can kind of really jump on that or something or other. But I'm still trying to find out our best way of kind of socially kind of chatting to folks, but Discord is a guaranteed way, and if you're interested in being a guest, then please do be in touch, and I can join you to things such as our Facebook Messenger kind of guests group as well. But you're more than welcome to come in and join us, and I think that's basically it now, isn't it? So we're going to say goodbye. I hope you can geek safe, and last for me to say is blessed be the geeks. Bye bye.
Amen.